Okay, well, it's Jeff, it's a great pleasure to welcome you onto the Consalia Sales Transformation podcast. It's taken us a long time, I think, to get to this point, but we're here now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great to have you with us, and thank you so much. For the benefit of our listeners, I'd just like to say that we've been kind of aware of Jeff's background for some time, a real recognized expert in the sort of sales enablement, sales operations, sales fields. And it's been a great pleasure to be able to track Jeff down and invite him to join us on this podcast. So Jeff, a huge welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Phil. Excited to be here. It was awesome connecting with you, and I love what you're doing in the community. So thank you so much for your business.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So what we normally do, Jeff, for the podcast is we start off with giving our listeners a chance to sort of get to understand you a little bit better. So, Jeff, I wonder if I could hand over to you just to give us a kind of potted background as to you and how you got to end up doing what you're doing now.
Sure. So thanks, Phil. My background is one in I like to even start from being in high school. So I've always been, people oriented, enjoyed people. And one of my first jobs during that time was working at McDonald's. And I was the guy during those years who would be flipping burgers in the back. They used to have the guys in the back. I know it's totally different today, but they used to have the guys in the back. And one day they were short staffed up front, and they trained a few of us to come up to work the register. And when I worked the register, it was like I was enjoying it and having a lot of fun. And one day my sister came in and she noticed how I was constantly smiling. Welcome to McDonald's. May I help you? Would you like fries with that? Would you like an apple pie? I was cross-selling before I even knew what it was. It was almost like a natural thing. And my sister was like, you need to go into sales. So literally when I went to college, I actually pursued a career in sales. And I know that may, be rare because you ask some people, what do you want to do when you grow up? Doctor, lawyer, but you don't hear, I want to be a sales rep.
Okay. Well, that's a fantastic sort of introduction to this topic. And I think that, like you said, it's quite rare for people to decide upon a career in sales at such an early age. But you've obviously been guided that way by your sister. So
yes.
You have a lot to thank her for. I hope you do that.
Exactly. Yep. It was a smart move for me. So I ended up interning when I was in college with a variety of different organizations in sales. So when I graduated, I ended up taking a job in the sales role for a company called Avery Dennison, the Fast on Roll division. Did really well. But one of the things I observed was they had a lot of trainers come. And whenever I would go through sales training, the sales trainer, I would always resonate with them and would speak to them during the breaks. Like, how did you get into this? How does one get into it? What's your background and what led to this? And I always had an interest in sales training. So I struggled initially in sales, but then ended up, once I learned and was trained, I ended up doing really well and literally became worked in a few different organizations. But in one particular organization, ended up being ranked number 2 in all of North America. And as a result of that, you know what happens when you do really well as an individual contributor in sales? They promote you. Then I got into sales leadership. And when I got into sales leadership, I thought I would just teach everyone to do what I did, and found out it doesn't quite work that way. And that there was a need for me to learn to be a leader and a sales leader. So I took more training in that area, and that all led to eventually, me doing where I am today.
Okay. No, it's it's always a very difficult transition, that, isn't it? Moving from being an individual contributor to being a manager. What do you think were some of the mistakes you might have made as, in those early years? I mean, what did you do looking back that didn't quite work?
Yeah, it was literally trying to duplicate myself by doing everything the way I did it. And I do believe that, success leaves clues, and there are some things that people can leverage. But what I learned later is that everyone is different, and you can win and get sales deals in a different way by being authentically you.
Right.
And that was something that I learned instead of trying to do exactly, and be me. It was like everyone's personality is different. So I had to learn to really meet people where they were, to let
Right.
them know that I care more about them as an individual and get to know them and their strengths and areas of opportunity, and then to help them to develop where they are. Some may
Yeah.
be more strong with, making prospecting calls. Others may be more strong in building rapport, and others may be more weak in actually, getting someone to agree to sign on the dotted line. But finding out what are their strengths, what are their areas of opportunities, and then having more of I'll call it a customized approach to the individual versus just a general blanket and everyone do it. This is how I did it. This is how you should do it.
Okay, that's great, and I think that that's something I think we'll come back to, if you don't mind, a bit
Sure.
later on.
Sure.
So Jeff, tell us what you're doing now. So you've obviously had a significant career in sales.
Yes.
As a contributor, then into leadership.
Yep.
So exactly what are you doing now?
So I transitioned into what we call sales enablement, which is the field where you are training within a corporate. You are training sales people all across the board, salespeople and sales leaders, and you are helping them. Or basically, this is what we do. So I have a team, and we create content. And when I say content, learning content, so a team of instructional designers that creates a learning curriculum. And then I have a team of trainers and facilitators where we manage the relationship within the business to understand, what they need, what are some of their gaps, areas of opportunities. And then we build training to help address that for them to be able to meet their goals. So I lead a sales enablement function within corporate.
Okay, that's interesting. And if you look at the sort of challenges that the corporates are facing in today's kind of quite turbulent world, I would suggest, but depending on which segment you might be in. But how do you see sales at the moment, and how have you seen the challenges facing sales teams evolve over the time you've been in the profession?
Yes, so definitely a lot of evolution in terms of, what it takes. And I know there's a lot of different sales frameworks, and we leveraged different ones, and we ended up creating our own version of a sales framework. But some of the areas of opportunity that we've been seeing, just in terms of the customer, is very smart today. A lot of options, with being able to do a lot of research, they're doing their homework. So when we come, it's a much of a more what I call sophisticated sale. So it's really being consultative is the area of opportunity. A lot of customers may have their defenses up, so to speak, because the old stereotype of what they would say previously, the used car salesman, but wanting to come across much more knowledgeable, much more caring about their business and understanding their business, armed with much more information. So it's much more complex, not as easy. There's nothing that we would call a one stop, where it's like, okay, one call closed. That doesn't happen. It's like you have to really demonstrate an understanding of the customer and demonstrate value where you are co-creating together versus, doing a product dump. So it's more of understanding their needs, co-creating together where they are providing their perspectives, their insights, and then you are literally customizing solutions based on your offerings that will help meet their needs. So it's much more of a meeting their needs and making it all about them and not us. The other thing that I'll share that's another area of opportunity is around doing it in a compliant way. There's a lot of challenges and areas of opportunity from a sales perspective with pressure in terms of, meeting your goals, meeting your numbers. And sometimes for some salespeople, with that pressure, they may, start to do things that are not necessarily the most professional, because it's like, I got to get this sale no matter what.
Yeah.
Versus making sure that we do business the right way, that we have proper sales practices, that we're doing it from, a legitimate, I'm doing it the right way and I'm only offering what makes sense to the customer and making sure that it's truly meeting a need for them.
I think at the moment you're working. Is it the financial services sector?
That's right.
Is it? Yeah,
That's right.
and
Yes.
I know in the UK there's been a sort of huge amount of compliance-driven uh, sort of approaches to
Yep.
sales. In fact, you can't even use the term sales now.
Sure.
I don't know if it's the same
Not
in the
quite.
US.
Yeah, not
No,
quite to that extent. But yes, we do have some things we have to certain words we have to watch out for that used to be
yeah,
acceptable.
yeah. It's yeah. So I can see that the compliance kind of part of,
Oh,
particularly for
sure.
your sector, is something that you're probably regulated
Definitely.
on
Yes.
fairly closely. So doing it in a compliant way is important. How interesting. So how do you manage the tension between what the business needs, the
Sure.
sales force to do,
Yeah.
and sort of what's right for the customer? How's that managed?
Yep. So I believe that they can coexist,
Okay.
meaning that we can meet the customer's needs and meet ours. There's an old saying that I believe it was Zig Ziglar who would say, if you help enough people get what they want, then you'll have enough to get what you want.
Right.
And then the other quote is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But the idea behind all of this is to be other centric, where if
Right.
you are focused on truly understanding them,
Yeah.
uncovering needs and meeting their needs, your needs will be met. And
Yeah.
it will be I'll call it a relationship and a partnership where you both win. The
Right.
idea is, 1 + 1 = 3 versus, oh, it's all about me, but doing things the right way, people appreciate it. And then that's where you get repeat business because they know it's like there's a true relationship here. We are in a partnership. We help each other. And especially when you're in business to make, a profit, it goes both ways, but just making sure you do it the right way, then you get the referrals, you get the repeat business.
Mm.
But when it's not done the right way, then that's when, that's okay. That'll be the last sale. Customers don't stay. You don't truly get the value of what you sold. Then instead of saying nice things about you, they're saying the opposite. And it can have a ripple effect in the negative way. Not to mention, from a compliance
Mm.
standpoint, it could be extremely costly.
Yeah.
So it pays literally to do business the right way.
The right way. So if you look at what you're doing now compared to what you might have been doing sort of 10, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
what have you seen as the major differences in the way that you now approach the whole enablement topic?
Sure, sure. So one area I'll say is capabilities or technology. So
Okay.
this is something that we're able to leverage so much more and even getting closer to our customers and understanding them. So not only when you think about, all this capabilities that are out there, things like, and I'll use Salesforce name,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, LinkedIn has LinkedIn Navigator in terms of being able to research and understand, connect with clients and provide solutions that helps you manage the process,
Mm.
the CRM systems. And then now with, different types of CRMs, you can embody or embed other types of capabilities within it. And, companies like Seismic comes to mind, where you
Yeah.
have so many capabilities with one-stop shop. We didn't have things like that in the past. It was much more
Yeah.
manual. You're literally picking up, dialing for dollars and looking and trying to figure out who's who and all of
Mm.
those things. But leveraging technology makes things so much easier and much more efficient. And
Right.
it helps us to connect in a better way, to have true understanding of issues and challenges and the right decision makers and who's where and who's what and who to connect with. So it's much, much, leveraging technology has made the sales environment so much for both, the salesperson
Yeah.
and the customer, so much more effective and efficient.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about buyers becoming more sophisticated, and
Mhm.
that presents its own sort of challenges and opportunities. There's a recent McKinsey report
Mhm.
that's come out that talks about um, the size of deals. I'm not quite sure what
Sure.
whether the kind of engagements you have with your clients are very large, multi-million pound engagements. Perhaps they
Sure.
are,
Yep.
but how they are noticing a trend that even with huge deals or significantly large deals, that they're looking for a self-select kind of purchasing process. And
Yep.
I'm not sure whether I necessarily would agree with that, but
Sure.
I've literally only just seen the report came out last week, I think it was.
Okay.
But it's quite challenging because it sort of begins to question what is the role of a salesperson sort of moving into the future. So I don't know if you've seen some of that trend happening in your sector.
Well, I think there's, for many companies, especially larger companies, they have different approaches from a sales perspective. So in some cases, and even, within our organization, just because it's so large, we have field-based salespeople, but then we also have phone-based, and we also have an online platform for customers who want to be proactive and who are literally researching and on their own, where they are literally self-selecting, and they can go to the website, they can go to different places and actually, do their own research and say, this is the solution I want. And they can self-select, from that perspective. So it's multiple channels and different variations for customers to meet the customer where they are. Because you're right, in some cases, depending on the size of the organization, but, as a customer and even as an organization that, with your commercial business, you can have different platforms to reach different types of customers where they are.
Okay.
And then it can lead to other opportunities for cross-selling. Today, many customer service organizations, or many organizations, have a customer service function that is a lead source for salespeople. So even when someone is just inquiring about something, sometimes someone may even be calling to complain about something, and they can even turn that into, a sales lead, based on the customer proactively reaching out. So the self-selection is real, and it can turn into, multiple opportunities for the business.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing your point of view on that. When we start to look at sort of sales capability, we look at different things. We look at obviously skills and competencies, and we look at technology, obviously, and then we also look at mindset and the way sort of people's attitudes and their values and belief systems as being a critical component. What are your thoughts about those those three buckets, if you like? Which do you think, if you can, they're all important, but if you were to focus on getting one of those three right, what would it be? Is it the technology? Is it the skills? Is it the mindset? What would you say?
Yeah, I'm with you with all of them in terms of technology, mindset, and values. But I'll talk a little bit about mindset, because I think that's a big one, and I think of Carol Dweck's book on the topic of mindset. And from a salesperson's perspective, it is having the right, and when I say right, the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And from that book, and I'm really highlighting that the growth mindset is the mindset around possibilities and what's possible, and focusing on solution oriented opportunities versus this can never happen, there's a challenge. And then that's where technology can play a part, because if I'm having more of a growth mindset, then I'm going to figure out and even leveraging that technology to help, versus the fixed mindset, can't be done, we can't meet their needs, this is not going to work, and you're not even going to be open to exploring the possibilities. So I'd say mindset is going to lead to the technology, and then even potentially understanding the values within others, because that's another important part to play in terms of the values of an organization, the values of your culture, the values of the individual. And the more we can connect on that level, because now you're going below the surface, with the iceberg, when you get into values, and that makes much more of a deeper, richer connection.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Now, we haven't talked yet about your book called The Inspired Career, and I've really enjoyed reading your book, and awesome. I'd love to have the chance to talk to you a little bit more about it.
Sure.
Before we go into the book itself, what inspired you to write it?
Yes, so I'll share. So part of my career journey, so I had mentioned I was working in corporate, but then at a period of time, I got to a point where I started exploring, and I mentioned how I was connecting with different sales trainers, and I got to a point where I wanted to try entrepreneurship. I wanted to explore it and see, you know what? I always had an inkling towards entrepreneurship, but I was always like, what do I do? What do I do? And from reading a variety of books by Zig Ziglar, Anthony Robbins, Jim Rohn, John Maxwell, a host of others, I found out that it's always good to go based on your strengths and areas of passion. So I ended up starting a business focused on leadership development, where I was doing, training around soft skills. I got my certification through International Coaching Federation and to become a certified professional coach and all of those things. And I started actually doing lunch and learns and free webinars for organizations. And I started up doing it on presentation skills. And when I would do it, complimentary, they would like, oh, can you come and do it? How much would you charge to do it for my team? How much would you charge to come and do it for this group? And it turned into a business where now I have a lot of different companies asking me to come in, do team building workshops, presentation skills, conflict management, and a host of other things. And it turned into a business that I was getting clients, from major Fortune 500 companies. And because I live in the Bay Area, a lot were, based right here in the Bay Area, some big names, such as Google, Kaiser, Genentech, and a host of others. And I ended up, it was great. And I was learning a lot because I'm doing coaching at the executive level. And I'm also doing leadership development with a lot of teams and their leaders. So a lot of insights that I'm gaining. Business was going great until the economy took a turn. The economy took a turn. I'm like, I got to get back into corporate. I live in the Bay Area. I got a family to support. But I wanted to capture the key learnings that I had learned from an entrepreneur, from working with various companies, from working from a career development with different people in different organizations. There were a lot of things that I observed. And one of the things that came to mind is that most people hate Monday morning. And the reason why most people hate Monday morning, because that's the day they go back to work. And a lot of research say that, unfortunately, a lot of people get heart attacks on Monday morning. It's a stressful time. So for many people, and then, there's other stats that says that 80% of people hate their jobs. And I'm like, there's a need here. There's an opportunity here to really breathe life into others and to help them to see the good. So I wanted to capture all that, and then writing the book, I have a copy of it here, called it The Inspired Career. Breathe new life into your job and get equipped, empowered, and engaged. And the idea behind it is the first section, the first half of the book, it is focused on breathing new life to help people see things and have a paradigm shift, have that growth mindset to see the good. So I have chapters, in the first half, like change is good. I have another chapter, in the first half around let it go, because sometimes we're holding on to grudges and that can hold us up. And then another one called Acres of Diamonds, and it's all about seeing the good where you are. And then the second half of the book is all around leadership development with more foundational leadership principles, such as authentic leadership. Learn to present as if your career depends on it, because it does. Executive presence, how you're presenting yourself. How do you show up? What is your brand? And then the power of networking and the importance of connecting with community and other like-minded people like yourself, Phil. And then finally, and it is all around, leadership and recognizing that not because you're a people leader, what makes you a leader is being a person of influence. So at all levels, regardless if people report to you or not, understanding that each of us lead in our area of influence, in our sphere of influence. We all have strengths, and that's the area of opportunity to develop and to demonstrate our leadership to others.
No, I really enjoyed reading the book, and I picked out a sort of a number of different topics that I thought it would, just to reflect on. And of course, there was a lot of the words that you use in your book are words that also that have come out of some of the research that I've done, which we can talk about. you know.
Sure.
So I thought, yeah, that's interesting. We're talking the same language, but we might have got to it in a slightly different way. But the fact is, we're using very similar words. And you, of course, the Obama sort of audacity of hope is a great phrase, isn't it? The audacity of hope. And I'd done my when I did my doctorate, I identified four key sort of value sets that mindsets that salespeople need to have, and one of them was around this word tactful audacity. And I think I can't remember when Obama came in, but I remember
like 2008. 2008.
Yeah, so that was after I'd finished, just about completing my doctorate, and I said, oh, "This is quite interesting." Even the president of America is now, using this word audacity, because it wasn't that
right.
But actually, it's quite interesting linking hope to audacity.
Sure.
And I think that that's a lot of what the first chapter is kind of doing, and it's about recognizing there's this rather frightening calculation that you have, which is to work out how many hours you got left to live.
Well, exactly.
And what you want to do with your life, So, and it made me think, okay, maybe I need to do this calculation again. I did it a long time ago, but
sure.
But I think it's about this having a dream, dealing with obstacles, and receiving or perceiving the best in others.
Sure.
Those were quite, they were great. But the E of hope, it was quite interesting because it's this expect to receive. And, and you talk about the gift of, I'm not sure if it's a gift of receiving, because you're giving gifts, say at Christmas time, you talk about Christmas.
Right.
So can you tell me about what led you to this E in hope?
Sure. So, and I'll just, to put it in context. So the first chapter is called The Audacity to Hope, and hope I'm turned into an acronym, with H saying have a big dream, O overcome obstacles, P perceive the best, and E expect to receive. And the E, to your question, is all about expectation and having a positive expectations, to be on the lookout. And I use this acronym based on some of my own personal experiences. And I told the story of how I was pursuing, entrepreneurship, and I got this job that was going to lead me there with this company, this training company. I call it a no-name training company, because traditionally I've worked for Fortune 100 companies. Here it is. I went to a company that was only worth a few $1 million, but just to learn about, the training industry. And a year later, I got fired. And I tell the story in the book, how I got fired. And going through that experience let me know that I needed to get my mojo back. I needed to get my whole mentality back, that growth mindset, because going through a major change, especially when you've experienced a lot of success and then all of a sudden you failed, it can really hurt you mentally. And it's important to turn that around, to literally overcome obstacles, to start to shift how you see things, and then be in a period of expectation. Because sometimes what can happen is when something negative happens, it can also, build, versus the opposite, meaning I have to turn my mindset to have that positive, optimistic mindset and be on the lookout that something good is going to happen.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is all part of this, positive growth mindset. You mentioned Carol Dweck. We're great fans of the work of Carol Dweck and so on, which is really interesting. And I think you use great, sort of great analogies like the acres of diamonds and so on, sort of recognizing that even on your doorstep, there are certain sort of skills that you've got, and so on. And you've also talked about sort of letting things go in the book as well. Be prepared to let things go.
Exactly.
What was behind?
Yes, because what I observed, especially as an entrepreneur working with different companies, a lot of people would hold on. As when I'm doing coaches, a lot of the challenges that they had was holding on to grudges. I went for the position, I didn't get it. I didn't get the rating that I thought I was supposed to get. Someone, backstabbed me, and they're holding on to all of these things, and it's preventing them from literally from moving on and moving up. So I really talked about the importance of being able to let things go and to be able to move on. It's the old saying of sometimes when you feel someone has done you wrong, you want to get revenge and you want to, all those things. But they say unforgiveness is really drinking the poison ourselves. We're only hurting ourselves. And in many cases, others don't even know that, that you feel that way, that they've done you wrong. And it's something that regardless if they apologize, regardless if they see it that way, we all have to get to a point of being able to release it in order to receive the next level for ourselves. And then there's so many health benefits of doing that as well, of being able to let things go, to forgive, and to move on.
Yeah. No, it's really, really interesting. And you also talk about this proactive change concept, which is interesting. We use the word proactive creativity quite a lot when we start to talk about mindsets, and I think the key word is proactive here. A lot of salespeople are quite can be quite creative. Relating this to a sales environment, but fewer are sort of proactive with it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So they're good at reacting to what a customer maybe has asked them to do. It might be some sort of innovation, but this idea of being proactive, I think, is something which is an important concept as well.
Yes, because we tend to be on the receiving end of change in many cases versus being more strategic and having thought leadership around what can I change sometimes about myself or my situation. And even, from a mindset shift to doing things in a different way to the quote that says, if you keep doing the same things over and over and expect different results, you're insane. And the idea behind that is to proactively explore opportunities to do things in a different way to get different results.
Yeah. I mean, the book you've written isn't necessarily a sales book, except I suppose you could say that everyone's a salesperson, no matter whether you're holding the title. So it's a book that's really for anyone. It's a book that can it's about career development, and it's about setting your aspirations very high. It's dealing with an ox. It's
yes.
Is that right? Is it you didn't really position it for salespeople per se?
The publisher, they like to make it more generic. But I do approach it from a salesperson's perspective in terms of mindset, and then especially when you look at the chapter on networking. But it is for everyone because it is around understanding, where you are, making the most of your current situation. I call it a coach in the book form. So it's like getting executive coaching to have a mindset shift and then to make the most of your situation, and with leadership development with a focus on growing and never stop learning. But it applies to everyone. I call it a coaching book, coaching in book form for your career.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah, really enjoyed
Thank
it.
You.
So if you are kind of looking to the future of the profession of sales, how do you see it today, and how do you see it kind of evolving over time?
Sure. I think sales is one of the best professions to explore. And the reason why I say that is because it's an opportunity of building relationships, uncovering needs, and meeting the needs of customers. And for the salesperson, it's an opportunity to be able to make a great living. What I've seen, or what I'm seeing today, that it has evolved, and I know it will continue to evolve. And I had mentioned, earlier how the approach from a salesperson to even get in front of a customer has changed with leveraging technology, with the different capabilities that is available to all of us today. Customers are much more sophisticated. They can almost sell to a salesperson because they understand your products almost, to the extent that you may understand them. And I see that continuing. I see more of an area of opportunity for us to leverage AI. within the sales profession and taking advantage of that. I also see the opportunity of customers continuing to want to be proactive. They don't like being sold to, but they don't mind being led to make a buying decision that's good for them. But it's almost like that guard comes up when they hear the phrase sales, or the salespersons, they're going to try and sell me something I don't need or I don't want. So I definitely see that continuing to evolve, where salespeople will continue to have to be more consultative to vision and position themselves as a consultant, to really truly understand the business, to help, from the perspective of a turnaround specialist would, and then leveraging technology. I just believe that technology is going to continue to be a part of what we do, and being able to leverage it, AI especially. And even today, some of the things, and I see it continuing to evolve for phone-based sales, where they're being, prompt in terms of what to say and what not to say, products to recommend, solutions to be able to, stay away from at the time, while they're like literally, computer screen and they're on the phone, and AI is analyzing the whole conversation as they're speaking and giving them, what to say and how to say it, and things to, that will help to lead them. And then there's AI that allows the salesperson to even role play, to practice, on their own before a customer meeting, things that'll analyze the sales call that happens and to be able to publicly say, you're on a recorded line, and that becoming, a natural thing, even potentially in the future for field salespeople to have some type of, recording and prompting and, leveraging, some type of a screen where it's, in the moment, in the moment coaching for them, as they go along, and then even from a customer's perspective, for them to have, something along that as well, that will automatically, recap the call. This is what we said, this is what we agreed to, and that will send them a, captured recording of it. So it's like, no one can say, I didn't agree to that. You said this, you said that. Where, we would always used to say back in the day, oh, if I had it, if I was able to play back what you just said, when people are getting argued, I didn't say that, to literally be able to say, okay, let's take a look, and let's take a listen. So I think it's exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about field sales, because so you obviously believe that there's going to be a point in time when conversations that happen with customers in the field can be recorded at the same time. Yeah,
I see that. I definitely see that long term coming, especially in areas where there's a lot of regulation.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, because it's really interesting. And I know that through the research that I did, all the conversations were recorded, and there are huge benefits to be had by looking at transcripts of conversations, being able to analyze it objectively, and the ability to remember. If you don't record things and the nuances, you lose it. If you get in spite of people perhaps being brilliant note takers. Obviously for phone, selling over the phone, it's almost expected conversations going to be recorded now. So it's amazing what you can do with that.
Standard. Yes.
But we have a big event coming up in London at the London Stock Exchange in November, and we have a professor talking at this event, who is a conversation analytics expert, and she has studied distress calls with people wanting to commit suicide or jumping off buildings, and the conversations that take place between the negotiators, if you like, and the person in distress. And she's done this both in America as well as in Europe. And what is so interesting about the degree of the analysis that she's able to do, because of course all of these conversations are recorded, is to be able to extract insights that are quite profound. So words like "I'm here to help you" apparently doesn't help with someone who is wanting to jump off a bridge. Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So, I mean, there are many other sort of subtleties. So you don't use the word help, but you use the word speak. You know,
Okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
and but I've always I've always felt that the ability to analyze field conversations would be just so interesting. And I'm not sure that we'd get to that point.
Sure.
This is me, because customers won't want to be recorded.
Sure.
You know, you'd need to get their permission, obviously. But I can see in the finance area, because of the regulation you have got, I have to record this because it's making sure I give you the right advice.
Exactly.
But maybe people are going to get more used to it. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an interesting thought.
It is. But you'll notice on most, phone-based calls, even when it's customer service, something, it's almost always you're on a recorded line.
Yeah,
even
that's right.
Airlines, and they'll say for training purposes, but for the most part, anything phone related, tends to be recorded today. That's why the thought is definitely regulation industry. I don't know across the board, that would be tough because, from on the other hand, I don't know, but a regulated industry, definitely I see that, coming down the pipe.
Yeah, no, I can as well. And I think maybe, it will become accepted in the future because of what you say. Most people are used to conversations being recorded. And, even things like Teams calls now, of course, you get the automatic note taking that takes place. So
exactly,
with AI enabled tools. So maybe it'll come sooner than we think. But that's an interesting thought.
Yes.
Can I just talk about sales as a profession? Because you were one of the few people who decided at a young age to go into sales.
Yeah.
But you didn't do a sales degree, I don't think.
Correct. It wasn't available at the time. So I majored in marketing in the School of Business. That was the closest, because I'm like, what if I want to go into sales? I went to Howard University, and that was the closest that they had to. It was like, you major in marketing.
Right. But now, of course, there are many universities in America that are offering sales degrees.
Exactly. Yep.
And do you look for those university degrees now for the recruitment into the company you're now working with?
Yes, we do. In many cases, we do explore that as, one avenue of recruiting. And in some cases, we have some who have graduated and that are now working in enablement and in sales roles. And it's a nice entryway into starting out. In some cases, we have hired them into sales support roles. And then, as long as they do a great job, they have the opportunity of moving into the field and becoming, sales managers and moving on up. But we do leverage that. And I do see that as a great field and a great opportunity. And I think I wish it was available in the past, but I'm glad it is today. I think sales is an outstanding field to explore.
And I think America are a long way ahead of any other sort of geography, if you like, in that respect. Though we're trying to change things over here in the UK, as you probably know, with the undergraduate sales degree that we have, and it's an amazing program. Yeah,
I love what you're doing. There's a big need for it. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, but the thing that surprises me is around leadership and sales leadership.
Okay.
There's MBA programs that are out there, but in America, there aren't many postgraduate courses that specialize in sales leadership. Just a few. Is that correct?
It is rare, specifically sales leadership. I don't know many in terms of, advanced degrees, just the undergraduate, but I don't know, normally it's the MBA and then you can have a specialty. So, you get a broad MBA, but then you can specialize in, take more electives in a certain area.
In a certain topic. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. So it's, it's interesting. So our vision is very much to, I think sales leadership is not the same as, it's a very specialist area. So
agreed. Yeah. It is different. Yep. So and there's opportunities for leaders to grow and to learn, just because, I know we started out saying in many cases they promote individual consumers who do a great job, but there's minimal amount of training for it. And that's an area of opportunity that we ended up focusing on. That's one of the things that helped within my career within the sales enablement.
Right.
When I first transitioned to sales enablement, my position was to create a focus on sales leadership. I created a center of excellence focused on the frontline sales leader, because it didn't exist. Everything that we did was for the individual contributor. And then we would just, train the leaders just so they know the same thing that the individual contributor.
Yeah.
We ended up focusing on the sales leader themselves and providing leadership type of coaching and training for them to become coaches of others, to be able to understand, okay, what are some best practices that I can leverage? But it's all around also emotional intelligence, situational leadership, because everybody is different and at a different place. And how do you lead your team differently versus in managing them? So, and then pipeline management, understanding, how to, review reports and look at leading indicators versus the lagging, and so that we're doing all the right things to set us up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an important, all of those are important disciplines, for the sales leader. So where do you see yourself? Maybe I don't know if you're happy to answer this question. If you're looking to the future, the time is ticking away, Jeff.
Yep.
And so what's your vision for the future?
So I enjoy sales enablement and leading in this capacity. Would love to continue to lead at a larger scale.
Yeah.
The other thing that I once I leave corporate, I'd love to do something, with you. In terms of teaching, and others, and helping others within the profession. I definitely see another book coming out of this.
Wow.
So I enjoy coaching, I enjoy sales enablement and leadership development, and being able to give back through teaching.
Okay. Well, Jeff, it will be a pleasure to talk to you again about this topic when you're ready. So you know where we are. Exactly. But thank you so much for taking part in the podcast. It's been brilliant. And we're going to, in the show notes, actually sort of put out details about the book, The Inspired Career. It's a fantastic book. And it is inspiring. It sort of really challenges you to think in a positive way about your career, and looking at the best use of time, and some really, really good practical coaching questions that you put into it. So thanks for sharing it with us, Jeff. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity, Phil. I look forward to staying connected and exploring other things that we may be able to do together.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Jeff. Cheerio then. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.